This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Week in Review. We've got a special guest host tonight, and we'll get to him in just a minute. But first, I think that given that it is, the probably the biggest news of the week, we want to start off the show in a solemn but respectful way. So let's do that right now. So that obviously is for the passing of Jay Briscoe, the biggest news story to start the week. And at this time, I'm going to pass it to a familiar voice, one that hasn't been on the show in a while, and he's Michael Gross, the gardener, has got some comments on the passing of Jay Briscoe.
Thank you, sir. Everybody, it's great to be back. I really don't want to be the one to bring everybody down, but I want to address the fact that Jay Briscoe has passed on. Jay Briscoe was a phenomenal performer. He was a phenomenal father. He was a great human being. He was a standout in his community. There's been a lot of talk about his local community in Delaware basically shutting down for the day because they can't really cope and handle the fact that they lost such a wonderful human being. I know people have said that he had some insensitive tweets which kept him from being on the AEW main roster. I've got news for you folks. I know many people who are police officers and lawyers. They will tell you in this digital age that at some point in your life you're going to wipe some egg off your face, and there might be something that you've said that will come from the past to bite you on the backside. Jay Briscoe was 38 years old. He was definitely still in the prime of his career. He and his brother Mark had one of the most believable gimmicks that you've ever seen. They looked like a couple of crazy rednecks that if you ever crossed them the wrong way, you don't know if you'd wrestle them or if you'd get cut in an alley and bleed out. Jay Briscoe was on top of his game. He had the best ring presence of any wrestler that was alive today. If you don't believe me, watch his match with FTR when they strapped the dog collar on him and just look at the way he owns that ring as they're putting that collar on him. He has a child. He has two children that were in the vehicle with him. One is going to have to wake up and hear the news that their father is not alive anymore. I just want you folks to let that sink in, as this man got no coverage, and he deserved quite a bit besides some arm bands and a quick infographic. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Briscoe is gone at 38 years old.
Yeah, well said, and that's the part I think that most people are overlooking or not discussing as much as maybe they should beyond the passing of Jay, is that the daughters that are in critical condition, and I did a quick update search to see what the latest was, and it does seem to be today that they did have improvements, and they're at least conscious and not able to one of them is not able to feed themselves yet, but they're hopeful that'll be resolved soon, and the other one I guess is starting to get feeling back in the lower extremities, which they're on the right path, long road ahead, but that's the other part, is not only are they critically injured, but they're gonna the realization of the father being gone is it's something that most of us can't comprehend. But all right, so beyond that, of course we have the next biggest breaking news story of the week, and that is the Firefly Funhouse being brought back, and some some comments that you and I were talking about before we started the show, and I'm going to toss this one to you about. There was a comment made during the Firefly Funhouse that both you and I agree was probably the best line of the entire week in WWE, and I'll toss that to you.
Hands down. I don't know what the name of the puppet. It was a little frumpy looking thing, and it was the one that Bray Wyatt was talking to the most. And I just love it. This is the best comment all week. I love LA Knight. He's like the Miz with muscles. Thank you. Thank you so much. The only way it could have been better if he said, he's like the Miz with talent. Ooh. But that was the best comment of the whole week. I don't care what people called each other. I don't care how many attacks they had. Stone Cold could have cut a promo. I wouldn't have cared because that one was just so beautiful. Just so beautiful. It made my day. If there was any way to put a smile on this face, it was that little comment by a puppet.
Who would the odds of that coming back and that segment making you smile does it certainly is telling to where WWE is at creatively. But I have to ask you, where or what do you think of the Firefly Funhouse as a whole being brought back? I mean, I thought we had kind of moved past this. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I mean, beyond the line that you mentioned, which was a good one. How do you feel about this now being brought back into Bray Wyatt's character that we really don't know what this is about anymore? I really do. I know Uncle Howdy's there. We don't know who that is, but how do you feel about the Firefly Funhouse?
You know, this one I'm very confused about because where do you go with it? It didn't really have a purpose before. The whole thing was that it was Bray Wyatt's supposed third alter ego, and then if you made him angry, you'd have to wrestle the Fiend, and if the Fiend defeated you, you had to revert back to something you were before, like Finn Balor had to go to NXT, and Bryan Danielson became the American Dragon again, and so on and so forth. So I don't know where we're going to go with this because the only thing you could do is have the Fiend face LA Knight and becomes, God, I hope not Max Dupree, or he goes back to his name when he was doing, TNA and such and becomes Eli Drake. But that's not going to really touch hardcore WWE fans who don't know that. So I don't know where we're going with this segment. I just know that between both Raw and SmackDown, there was a lot of time dedicated to Uncle Howdy's supposed appearances, Alexa Bliss turning back to the dark side, and then Bray Wyatt himself. And honestly, I got to say, LA Knight is the perfect foil for him because the promos that man cuts are great, and his in-ring work is great. The only thing that I really don't like is the fact that, you really cut LA Knight's match short. I knew when you saw an enhancement talent, what was that guy's name, like George something? It was
I don't know.
Very forgettable. And so, it was a quick squash match. It wasn't even very good. It was very botched. And I think that was just so they could watch, the promo going on. I don't know where we're going with this one. I really don't. It's funny because they're both playing like the tweener angle. Who are you supposed to cheer? Who are you supposed to dislike? I don't know. People are going to get behind the Firefly Funhouse, especially kids, because it's just goofy. And it always seems to build momentum for some ungodly reason. Because, when you look at it, really, it's silly. So the return of it's got me puzzled. It makes me wonder who's writing right now in the office. What do you think, man?
Well, that's a whole nother topic of Vince and his return. Like, that's a whole nother hour and a half of possibilities there. And I've heard some quote unquote credible sources say that, well, Vince is actually back in the office. He's going to keep Triple H head of creative, but he's, going to resume control. Who knows? Again, there's so many different ways and different things to discuss here. I don't like to talk about what ifs and whens because there are 100 ways to go, and we will probably be wasting our energy until facts come out. I want to deal with facts on this case, and right now, Vince is back as on the board of directors. Stephanie resigned. Saudi Arabia did not purchase WWE yet. So we're getting a lot of here and there and Twitter, and I'm trying to sift through all the crap. So I guess to answer it, Triple H, as far as I'm concerned, is still the head of creative, and this has got to be coming from a lot of Bray and some of Triple H, because I think Triple H is allowing Bray to be much more on the creative end of control for his character than maybe Vince would have otherwise allowed.
As long as the narrative doesn't go off the rails again, as long as no one gets burned alive, as long as we don't have the puppets popping up in the crowd, the silly stuff. I just want the hokey out of there. If it's just something to try to be a thorn in someone's side and be like a little segment, fine. I prefer these segments stay under 2 minutes because we have enough of these goofy KO shows and stuff like that just kills what could be bell to bell in ring time. So As long as the narrative is it's just to be a thorn in someone's side and we use it selectively, maybe around the big four, and we don't revisit it the rest of the year, then that's going to add a little bit more special momentum to it and gives us time to build more around what these segments are. If there's no idea now, it gives us a little time to finally find one.
And who do you think Uncle Howdy is? Do you have any idea?
Okay, I've speculated this. A lot of people say it's Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas is not going to connect with that crowd because you still have the stank of Bo leaving. I've heard that it was a Ring of Honor worker. I think his name was Vinny. Who I personally would like it to be is Timothy Thatcher. Because they haven't revealed enough of his body. Timothy Thatcher's chiseled. The only thing is Timothy Thatcher obviously has some rather unique teeth. But last I heard, he's been contracted to Inoki Genome. But those are like impact contracts. Those are like year contracts or less. You know, it's more like you get 4. It's like the old territory. We'll sign you for 8 months. This is also one of those things where they just might stretch it out until they finally find someone to put under the mask. The other person I would like it to be, and I texted you this a while ago, although the person's too young and too mobile, Raven. One, because Scott Levy has an incredible mind. He used to write for them when he was Johnny Polo. But the other fact is, if you need somebody who's supposed to be demented and a person who can get into Bray Wyatt's mind, it's the only character that's out there that could add a breath of fresh air. Plus, if you ever watch old Raven promos, a lot of times he would start with howdy. Very interesting. He would always say that. However, this guy is too young. I mean, you know, Raven's older than The Undertaker. He's, I think, 60. So you could use a young person for now, and then maybe Raven comes out and then he serves as the managerial type, and maybe you could build a stable around it, or just have he's the one who controls the Fiend side of Bray Wyatt. But more than likely, if they go the WWE route, it's going to be Bo Dallas, and it's just going to fall flat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike your other picks, but you're right. Like, once you boil it down to reality, it probably is a WWE way of things. And it's hilarious because I mentioned this before in my show a couple weeks ago that Bo Dallas is more relevant now than he ever was in his in-ring, on-camera career. Like, people are talking about him more now, and he hasn't even done anything or shown up than he was actually doing the whole Bo leaving gimmick and everything. And it's I don't know if that's sad or funny, maybe a little of both. But I mean, the thing is, the longer this goes, the bigger the hype, the bigger the expectation too. So that being said, it does feel like it's a WWE reveal of sorts. It's some kind of, I don't know, returning star, somebody maybe from NXT being called up. I'm not sure, but the longer it goes, the bigger the expectation. They can't bring in somebody you'd think that no one knows, because everyone's going to look around and go, that's it? That's what this is for? Somebody we don't even know? For most fans, they're going to go, who? What? That's it?
Yeah.
So I think that's the problem, is they've done this now for a couple of months, and it's got to be a bigger name. Not a legend, I don't think, but it's got to be a bigger name than somebody brand new. I'm all for new, but fans will groan. There'll be no reaction for the reveal, and I don't think they want that.
There's the worst reveal would be, it was me, Wyatt. It was me all along. No, please, no.
Oh, God. Circa 1998, guy, or 1999, I think it was, when, Vince McMahon is the higher power, if you don't know what we're talking about, that would be awful. Here's a question for you.
Sure.
In a bit of a transition. As we talked about Vince a little bit, do you think that, forget the behind-the-scenes stuff for now, creative and all that, do you think we'll see Vince McMahon on screen anytime soon? I think, personally, it could happen sooner than later. I honestly do. Do you think Vince would dare be brought back on screen in the near future?
I think for one last WrestleMania appearance, and that's going to be it. Because if his sole purpose is to sell the company, and we don't even know if that's true. It's like you said, we could contemplate what ifs all night. In fact, I want to quote Jules from Pulp Fiction, but I can't say those words. Man, I missed you. I love being back, guys. So I see him back for one last WrestleMania. I don't see him in the company by next year or making any physical appearance again, unless it's by accident on camera. I sure don't see him at the Royal Rumble. There's no purpose for him to be there. So if it's anything, it's going to be Mania, and it's going to be a send-off, and maybe, of course, for Hall of Fame stuff. He'll be there for Hall of Fame stuff. That's what we're going to see. That's going to be the next time I predict is Mania, and then probably Hall of Fames after that.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I've heard reports everything from he's going to be at the Rumble to Mania to he could be on Raw 30. I mean,
oh gosh.
Raw 30 is only 2 days away, guys. As I'm recording this, is 2 days away. I know we're releasing this episode on a Sunday, but it's Raw 30 is very, very soon, and they keep playing the audio. If you've noticed in the Raw 30 production and promotion, there has been Raw 30 promos. Many of them have been Vince introducing us to the very first edition of Monday Night Raw, where he says, "Welcome to Monday Night Raw." It's Vince's voice.
Yeah, I forgot.
Now is that? I mean, it's a big event. Raw 30 in Philly the week of the Rumble. I mean, it's possible, but I don't know what the purpose of it would be. I mean, any chance that happens? The table's kind of set, unfortunately.
Well, it's going to be two things. One, it's Philly. And you know what happens when Vince McMahon shows his face in Philly. It's more heat. For those of you who are young enough who might not know, ECW started, and it was based and very much ingrained into Philadelphia culture. So every time WWE goes there, there's going to be ECW chants. If there's a match that's lackluster, you're going to hear ECW chants. You're going to hear boring. You're going to hear the worst crowd. It's worse, I would say, than the Raw after WrestleMania. Would you agree on how brutal the crowd can be in Philly?
Think about Royal Rumble 2015 when Roman Reigns won the Rumble and they booed him and they booed The Rock.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's Philly. That's Philly for you in a nutshell. So it's going to take his legendary grapefruits to come out there and stand in front of that crowd and not be verbally eviscerated by every human being in there. So maybe he'll do a pre-tape, so we might see him up on the wall saying some stuff, maybe opening "Welcome to Monday Night Raw" kind of thing. But I could see that crowd being brutal, especially with everything he's going through. Oh man, that's going to be a rough, tough one. So I didn't think about he might come out for 30. Oh, I didn't think about that.
Sorry. Yeah. It's I mean, the table's set honestly for a couple of big returns. And beyond Vince, I think even more likely, slightly more likely, is The Rock.
Probably.
I haven't got your take on this. Do you think, I've heard conflicting things, The Rock may not be able to get there, he may not be able to be a part of Roman and Rock this year, all these things I've heard back and forth, and we've speculated about this match for literally years now.
Exactly.
Do you see, first of all, The Rock Roman happening at Mania? And if you do, when does The Rock come back to inject himself in? I mean, this Monday we have it's called the, there's like some kind of celebration of the all generations of the bloodline.
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of screams Rock.
It does. I mean, obviously we're going to have Rikishi in there, and every time that fat man dances, I smile just a little bit more. Honestly, I've always been a big fan of his, going back to when he was in like the Samoan SWAT team in WCW. I always thought the guy had talent, but it does scream The Rock. The thing is, if you push The Rock into that position early, the Royal Rumble means nothing. And they have a bad habit of it's like having Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. I don't ever feel that the title should be defended at the Royal Rumble. I think the Rumble is always going to be the highlight, and I think that there should be tag titles, and there's other ways to supplant like that card without defending the title. Because what I think is more important is for the champion to stand there and watch the whole thing and see who's it going to be. Now, it does scream The Rock, though. It does. But, okay, if he says he's going into the Rumble, we already know who's going to win it. No one's going over him. So why even have the match? These are those, jewels in Pulp Fiction what-ifs, and that's you would almost have to have it on the day, but you have to have a reason for people to buy into getting the Royal Rumble more. You have to hint at it, but you can't reveal it enough to where you're going to say, okay, it's 50-50. But yeah, with the whole generational, tribute to the bloodline, more than likely he's going to pop up, but then he'll get booed out in Philly too. Oh, this is a tough one.
It's I know that's the thing. I said that the position of this segment is going to be everything. If this is in the beginning of the show, if this is at the middle of the show, The Rock's not coming out. And I'd say that if it's at the end of the show, billed as the quote main event, that gives you a very strong hint that The Rock probably will come out. The thing is, as you said though, the biggest problem I have with this overall, regardless, is that it overshadows Rock Roman at Rumble.
Yeah.
It's just like a pro wrestling rule. You don't overshadow the current match with a match that is bigger, that the fans won't care about the current match now. Like if The Rock comes out and confronts Roman, or there's any kind of hint of The Rock being there, and he is, and he, whatever, then the fans are going to go, can we just get past Kevin Owens and Roman because we really want Rock and Roman? You don't cannibalize the match that's about to happen in 5 days. Like you just don't do it. If it was the Monday after Rumble, have at it. Knock yourself out. But if it's the go home show to the Rumble that you're trying to get the boiling point of Kevin Owens and Roman to, you don't pour cold water on that program with The Rock coming out. It's an unwritten rule. It's not smart business. Now, even though everybody in the world knows Kevin Owens has a negative 20% chance of winning, you just still don't do it. So that's the biggest problem I have.
No, I'm with you, and I love the way that you said that. It's perfect words. You're cannibalizing your main event, and it's one of those situations where, like you said, you just want to look past it. It doesn't exist. It didn't matter, and that's something that has been part of WWE's creative problem since the 80s. They would do things like this because then they were marketing more towards kids. So they figured a kid won't remember. Well, this kid did. And as far as KO goes, the only reason he's in that is because you're tying up Bobby Lashley with somebody else. There's nobody else that you believe is a top tier person at this point. And that is the saddest thing. That's how bad they've been with developing a top-tier babyface, because Drew McIntyre has spent a year toiling around in the mid-card, palling around with Sheamus, which is like a talent vacuum that kills you. You've got, Lashley stuck in the U.S. title picture. Why? He eats people. Come on. Mm-hmm. So that's the only other believable person. And then the only other person after that's KO. But how many times has KO lost a world title match to Roman Reigns? At least 3. They've been great matches, don't get me wrong. They have been fantastic matches. But where are we going with this? So if he loses a 4th time, you're never going to believe that this guy is ever going to be in the main event again. He'll always be a tier above the mid-card titles and a tier less than the world title. It's just he's a highlight on the show. He's segment 6. So I feel bad for Kevin Owens, because I really feel like unless there's a miracle and the stars align, they say, hey, let's put the belt on him for a little while so we can work a Rock Roman program. There's one other aspect to this, and I'm going to bounce this off you real quick, boss. So let's look at it this way. When Eddie Guerrero took the title off Brock Lesnar, it was because they wanted to build Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. So if the bigger picture doesn't involve a title, then this could be KO's time, and then this could also be the time for Sami Zayn to break away, and maybe we get a WrestleMania headline by Sami Zayn and KO. Stars could align on this.
I have said this, really for months. I have never seen a WrestleMania season where there are so many variables, possible returns, turns, heel turns, babyface turns, Sami Zayn involved, all these things. It's really incredible, and this is another theory that I don't hate. I don't think is in the realm of impossibility. I think it's possible if the stars align. If I was to try to dispute this and the reasons why it wouldn't happen, well, the Goldberg and Brock Lesnar match in 2004 that was hilariously, actually embarrassingly awful. I was there for it. Madison Square Garden destroyed it, rightfully so. It was even worse in person.
They stank it up.
Thank God for Austin, stunning them both. Yes. But the difference for that was that both of them were on their way out. They needed to get that title out of that picture for somebody that could have a moment at WrestleMania that was going to be there for a while. And so that the difference was those two were out of it. Both of them, their contract expired at the end of March in 2004. They're gone. So With this case, though, I am of the belief, and I would be a proponent of no title with The Rock Roman. I don't want a title in the match.
Bingo.
I never wanted a title in the match because it doesn't need it, number one. Number two, it tips the outcome of the match even more than it already would because The Rock ain't going to win the belt. There's just no chance of that. I wouldn't want him to win the belt either because even if he does, what's he going to go on like a 1 month run and go back to Hollywood? No, it's not going to happen. So I don't want either thing to happen. I don't want the belt involved, and even if it is, I don't want The Rock to win. So if they take the belt off Roman before WrestleMania, which I don't think they will, I'm all for it. But they look at it as, well, yeah, the belt, it's a bigger match, and it's like, no, it's not actually. But I think they're looking even past Mania because what I've also been saying is, hey, they are getting really close to that 1,000 days. Like they're at 870 or 880. They're 85, 86, 87% of the way to 1,000 days. They will never likely, and maybe even in our lifetimes, have that opportunity with someone again with a storyline like this that they can have 1,000-day reign with. I can see the documentaries. I can see the promotion for it. And by the way, it's at the end of May, so right around Memorial Day is when that 1,000 days I think is when it'll hit. So they're going to get past WrestleMania. I believe fully and wholly that Roman Reigns will retain the Universal and the Undisputed. I don't even care if they split the belts. He's going to hold on to the Universal Championship. And he'll get to that 1,000 days, and then he probably won't lose it till SummerSlam against whoever at that point. So that's my theory.
I really like it, and honestly, like I said, I'm with you 100%. The Rock versus Roman Reigns doesn't need a belt, does not need a championship on the line, because now you're just defecating on something that could be out there for somebody else. It's going to sell itself. It's going to put people in seats. Period. So we don't need that championship. Somebody else can go to it. But it was 2 years ago that I said to you on this show, don't you see the parallels between Sami Zayn and Mankind? And it's coming up to fruition more and more. And I just see that I think there's something more for Sami in store besides just being the plot device of a storyline that could potentially have The Rock, or have Kevin Owens might go, or maybe have Kevin Owens go over. There is something more in store. If it's not, all you've done is waste this guy's time for a year. But I really feel he's into that Mankind position that nobody has filled since Mankind, where it's just so goofy, so lovable. The comedy is comedy, but yet it's not Santino Marella, our truth comedic spots. It's goofy, but it's getting cheap heat that's turning into laughs where you're saying, what is he going to say next? He is becoming more and more babyface every day and more the focal point. He's already the focal point of what's going on with them, but everybody knows Roman has defenses. The Usos have defenses. Solo, Samoa Joe, Sikoa has whatever. And Sami Zayn is very much the entertainment, the mouthpiece, the focus, and he's going to get rewarded somehow. I feel that.
He will, and I just don't know if it's going to be WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I still think WrestleMania is going to be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking on the Usos and maybe even dethroning the Usos as unified tag champions or SmackDown, whatever, because suddenly they're defending the belts on both Raw and SmackDown. Somehow they've split them. It's bizarre. I don't understand this unification that's really not a unification. Either way, I think Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens defeat the Usos at WrestleMania, and they finally end the Usos' reign while Roman Reigns retains. And that's probably Sami Zayn's payoff for now. However, when you look at Elimination Chamber, which is the next pay-per-view premium live event, it is in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And it screams Sami Zayn taking on Roman Reigns for the Universal or Undisputed Championship. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. Now, I think Sami Zayn is probably going to lose there, but it will give him his moment for a main event match with Roman to eventually maybe he is the one to ultimately take Roman Reigns down after the 1,000 days. Maybe he is. But that's 5 months away. I mean, 4 months and change away. We've got quite some time. So I think Montreal Elimination Chamber is going to be a massive pay-per-view for Sami Zayn. I just don't know exactly how it's going to play out.
Now, you've got a really good point there. Who are the two premier Canadians on the roster? Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. So you know that Montreal's going to come unglued. Montreal's a fickle city. They love their hometown heroes. They also love to, just like Toronto, they love to turn your babyface heel and your heel babyface. So it's just like they're going into the shotgun. Philly, Montreal, wow. You are really stepping into some territory where everything you have planned could be booed out of the building or loved and you didn't want them to. That's really interesting. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I've dove into this so much. It's starting to hurt my head, and I'm just ready for the Rumble so I can get some damn answers, because there's just, I'm just over the speculation in my mind of all the spider web of possibilities with Sami Zayn. Maybe he wins the Rumble. I mean, Sami Zayn, I don't know if he's in it, but maybe he's announced for it the night before the Rumble and next Friday night on SmackDown. We don't know. And if he wins it, then what? Does he say he's going to lay down for Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and then he ends up not? I mean, we don't know, but I mean, that's why this hurts my head. There's too much to possibly happen. Again, Seth Rollins is a candidate, I think, to win the Rumble as well, given the history of those two that never really finished their program. Cody Rhodes, of course, is the number one in terms of betting odds to win the Rumble. He's been essentially the projected winner for 7 months since he got injured at Hell in a Cell back in, I mean, like, literally the day he got injured, we're like, well, hell, that'll put him around the Rumble and he'll probably come back and win. And since then, nothing has changed. So it has been the most, so far, predictable Rumble. I think there's a chance Cody doesn't win, but right now he's still the heavy favorite.
Well, you and I both love the Royal Rumble, okay? And when it comes to the Rumble, there's things from the past that I don't like that they still do today. When they start announcing people, it'll be somebody like Otis, like, I'm announcing my candidacy to go in the Rumble. One, you're part of a tag team. A person who's part of a tag team never wins it. And, I mean, even though, what was it, the second Rumble, where they had the moment where Demolition had to wrestle each other, which caught everybody off guard, that was art. And back in the day, if you bought the WWE magazine, WWF magazine back then, when you went to the section that talked about the Royal Rumble, the biggest page they had was Axe putting Smash in a headlock and how they had to fight each other. Then they threw somebody out and had to fight each other again. But that's a 1 in a million moment, a Royal Rumble moment. So when it comes to it, when they start saying, like, oh, geez, like, Ivar is going to be in, no one cares. He's not going to win. You're not separating the tag team. And then if it's a chance if it's obviously the shot for the WrestleMania spot, I don't like stupid people like Jon Stewart and, like the celebrities who pop Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously you're not going to win. And two, there's somebody in the back, a wrestler, who should be in that spot. So, I mean, who knows? It could be Kurt Hennig's son, He's still in. But, gosh, what if he's Captain?
Oh, yeah.
What if he's Captain Howdy? Actually, so can I touch on, when it comes to the Rumble, obviously they haven't really announced everybody who's being in it. Can I throw out a few surprise names? Because now that Triple H is opening the forbidden door, some names just for at least one time in the WWE, or people who aren't under long-term contracts, if Triple H is willing to work with outside promotions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For the first time and only time in WWE before he retires in the Royal Rumble, you hear here first, the Great Muta. Tell me that wouldn't have the place just go crazy. Now, he's working for, what is it, Inoki's Genome or something like that, but that door's been open, and who's wrestling him? Nakamura? Well, wouldn't you tell Shinsuke while he's over there, hey, see if he wants to make an appearance? If we're going to work with you, why don't you work with us? So the other name I'm going to throw out there, and if Cody doesn't win it, the perfect way for him not to win it is Nick Aldis. Have you thought about that?
No.
He's out of the NWA. On certain other podcasts, he's talked about, he's got bookings, but he won't say where. His wife is Mickie James, who they always call back for the female Royal Rumble. He has never set foot in a WWE ring, and the man is insanely talented. And he and Cody had a year-long feud for the NWA title, and they swapped it back and forth. And if you guys have not seen those matches, get on YouTube and type in Nick Aldis versus Cody Rhodes and just sit just sit back and be blown away. It was art. So if he came in later, he and Cody go at it, rekindle that. That's your way of getting Cody out, and you start a program that's worthy of a WrestleMania spot. That's how you get Cody out of it. But I would love to see Nick Aldis in there. If they have signed him, that would be amazing because he's too talented. He's also around 35, 36, maybe he's 38. And so the clock's ticking, but he's in phenomenal shape. The way he dresses, the way he cuts promos, he's a professional. They've been looking for a guy like this. He can work babyface. He can work heel. He works heel like a modern-day Ric Flair. Not as charismatic, but I tell you what, you'll still pay attention to him.
Yes, I can't dispute that either. I think that there is something, especially in Philadelphia, that crowd, a smart crowd, would explode for that. But however, I think the casual viewer would have to be educated at home by the announcers, because the people in Philly would be going crazy, but everyone at home's like, most people would be like, huh? Who? Right? Like, that's why the announcers would need to be there. But it would, I think, yes, Philadelphia would be a perfect place for that, to kick off that program that would lead to WrestleMania with Cody Rhodes. As I hear this, though, it does, regardless of how this all plays out, I think that there is an argument to be made that Cody Rhodes does not win because so many people are expecting him to win. And it's been known, quote unquote, for so many months now that I think WWE wouldn't want it to be that predictable. But at the same time, you can have him still in the main event of WrestleMania without having to win the Rumble. Remember, there's two roads to the main event of WrestleMania.
True.
Because they're, you know what I mean? So the other problem, though, is how do you split the belt off of Roman? I don't like Roman Reigns holding both belts. I never have. I think that it has been a big detriment to Raw. They've elevated the U.S. title, and that's awesome, but it can only go so far before they just start like flat out lying to us that it's the most important belt in WWE. It's like, no, it's got lineage. It's a respectable belt. You guys have done a great job resurrecting it, but like, enough is enough. Let's get a top belt on Raw here. I think it's doing a disservice to a lot of guys on Raw that deserve a main event spot at WrestleMania for a championship that we all presume is going to be The Rock. So once again, if it's The Rock only in a top championship match at WrestleMania, there's going to be a lot of I think negativity backstage and resentment for that. But I digress. I think you're right. There is an argument to be made, though, that Cody Rhodes doesn't win. Do you think? Let me just ask the question. Do you ultimately think Cody Rhodes is going to win, or do you have someone else in mind?
There's no disputing Cody Rhodes is going to win this thing. I mean, it's like you said, it could be Seth Rollins, but the more he dyes his hair and wears those god-awful tights to look like Dolph Ziggler, he's just going to bury himself. That's a narrative, guys. I'm sorry. That's editorial. Excuse me. That's the word I was looking for. That's a little editorial point. He's got all the talent in the world. I love Seth Rollins, but there's nobody else that is in that tier, and that's the problem. That's why KO is where he is. So unless it's they could roll the dice with Braun Strowman, but no one wants to see that. They don't know what to do with the guy. I hate to say it, like the only people who could realistically get into that top tier spot are Bobby Lashley, Braun Strowman, but no one wants to see it. Maybe Cross, but he's a heel. It wouldn't work. Shoot, this is tough. Bray Wyatt. He's maybe the only other name. So that's what they've done with themselves with the Roman Reigns push. That's why while it's been good, it's also been bad because he hasn't, besides the Brock Lesnar matches, they didn't build anybody else up as credible. And it's got to be Cody, and I'm racking my brain unless I've seen some spoiler sheets of some people who are supposed to be in the Rumble. Okay. And they've always left a spot open on many different sheets that says, hopefully, CM Punk. Yes.
Really?
Oh, you know who else's name is on there? Current leader of the Bullet Club, Jay White. Triple H wants to open the forbidden door. I've seen these. And then a name that depresses every human being alive, Matt Cardona, because that's what we need, more Zack Ryder in our life. Guys, just let it go.
You know it.
Oh my God, that's just, and that's a guy who definitely get booed out of Philly. So I've seen on multiple sheets both Jay White's name and a spot that always says hopefully CM Punk. he has been really quiet. He has been really quiet with this whole thing. So if he got released, you would think that Tony Khan, on the flip side, would do a non-compete. Well, if he's already been released, those 90 days are up. It's almost 6 months.
Right.
So and then I've also heard Braun Breaker is supposed to get his call up then. So thing is with Braun Breaker, I still see a guy who's very green. He's great, don't get me wrong, but it's his charisma that's green. You believe he's a monster, but there's no pull-in. I see him doing more wrestling enhancement talent to get his momentum than winning a Royal Rumble. But if he makes an appearance, I won't be upset about it. But some interesting names. And then I've seen Muda on one sheet, which I think is awesome. And there was other spots there's been a couple spots that are just empty, not sure, whatever. But like I said, I'd love to see Nick Aldis. He's out there. And like I said, just walking to the ramp, all you have to say is, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know the history between them that was outside this promotion, you need to get on YouTube. It sells itself, and it's done right there. But, wow.
Well, no, I mean, these are all things that I think that we can talk about and
Forever.
not be crazy. No, well, not just that, but like, I don't think we sound as crazy as we would if Vince McMahon were still the CEO of WWE and he was still the head of creative. Again, guys, I'm going with what I know. If he's in charge of creative right now, just kind of under the radar and we don't know about it, then, it is what it is. But we're going with what we know. But my point is, I think it's not so crazy to talk about because I think that Vince would have not done this because he felt he was above them, probably didn't even know anybody outside of WWE. Vince is very, very much a tunnel vision guy in WWE and very much in his bubble where, when Shinsuke Nakamura came in, there were reports that he really had no idea about any of his work coming into WWE, and you hear about that a lot outside of WWE. If it didn't happen in WWE, it didn't happen, according to Vince McMahon. So I think with Triple H, he's much more open to that possibility, and so it's not so crazy. And I think there's going to be some names like that. Not as I don't think CM Punk will be in there. I got to be honest. I don't think he would. And what he did in AEW and the press conference with Tony Khan, and like even if it was a work that made everybody look bad. So if to shoot or work, they're both really bad options that I think show you that CM Punk right now. And what he did that night was, just burying the company at his own expense. Just extremely unprofessional that night. Again, even if it's a work, it was bad. And I don't think, personally, I wouldn't want to do business with somebody that would publicly out the company at the expense of getting himself over at a press conference when there's really nothing to gain. I really don't think that WWE benefit. Do I think he'll be back at some point? Yeah, probably Hall of Fame, whatever. But I don't think he'd be involved here because even though it's Philadelphia and the crowd would lose their minds, what's the upside here? Was he gonna win the Rumble? No, probably not. So he's just gonna get eliminated? Yeah. I mean, so to me, I don't think it's going to happen, but in general, this Royal Rumble is unpredictable as hell.
Yes.
Outside of the fact that Cody Rhodes is probably going to win, probably. But what's the best part about the Rumble isn't necessarily even who wins to me. It's like the little mini stories that happen throughout the match. Like like the dynamic that changes and the little stories and things that happen in the match that lead to other matches at WrestleMania. Somebody eliminated somebody and that person, comes in and eliminates that person, which I don't like or agree with or understand how that works. But something like that, like you'll have those moments of maybe Brock Lesnar possibly returning. You're hearing John Cena's name against Austin Theory at WrestleMania. Stone Cold might be having another match at WrestleMania. Like I feel like it's 2002 again. I mean,
yes.
When you're looking at like these possible, like you have Brock Lesnar, who is definitely capable of still having another match. John Cena more than likely is going to have a match at WrestleMania. He's made it clear. The Rock is in the realm of possibility of facing Roman Reigns. You have Stone Cold Steve Austin, who we never thought we'd see back in a match, maybe coming back again this year. And you notice that Stone Cold and The Rock are not a part, advertised anyway, as part of Raw 30. Why is that? Well, because if they're going to come back, they're going to do it for a WrestleMania reason, not just for a one-off for a Raw 30 event. So the two of the biggest names, if not the biggest names of all time in pro wrestling, they were ominously, mysteriously off of Raw 30. So that tells me if you're a proponent of wanting them to have a match, they could. But my point is, yeah, look at this. We've got nearly four or five legacy stars from the Attitude Era that are possibly coming back for matches at WrestleMania.
Well, that shows you lack of development in your main roster. Now, what I will say is, one, at this Rumble, I don't want to see another Kofi goofball moment. I'm just over that.
No.
You're killing me, man. And what about Big E?
Yes, Big E. Big E returning. Yep.
Oh, I wouldn't mind seeing him return, but this is his perfect time. He's been away long enough to wash the stank of the New Day off him. In fact, I'd like to see him be the one to pitch Kofi over the top to where he just lands on his feet and he's out. But I want to see a darker Big E, like when he first came in, when he was Big E Langston, the bodyguard of Dolph Ziggler. Let's put a chip on this guy's shoulder, because that whole his title run was just trash, complete utter garbage, and it was an embarrassment to the company by the way he portrayed himself, because it was just goofy. It was just garbage. So why don't you give him his own identity instead of him wearing stupid, Santa Claus sweaters and acting like a New Day member when he's supposed to be his own man doing his own thing? That writes up its own story. So he goes after Xavier and Kofi, hunts them down, tells them they held him back, writes itself. If he's healthy enough, I'd be welcome to a Big E return, but I want to see some improvements in him. As far as, we both hate the big ending. It's a terrible, terrible finisher. We need a new finisher for him, and I just need a new look. Everything. And he can't be goofy. He can't, no more pancakes, bootios, any of that stuff. I would have him cutting promos about how he was going to get fired if he wasn't forced to say things like that. That's where I'd go with Big E. That could be, I'd have him a machine in there, suplexing people over the ropes and stuff until he eventually got eliminated. But that's how you bring back somebody who the fans know that I think will connect. If he's healthy enough, that'd be great, I think.
If you and I were booking that, that's the way it would go. But see, here's the thing. You and I are fighting against the machine that just loves them some New Day. And it'll be gyrating and jumping around. And unfortunately, I don't think things are going to change there. I wish it would. There were teases of it. There were hints of it. And every chance they got, they brought them back together. Even when Big E was getting a little traction, what'd they do? Bring him back together, and he'd be gyrating and making awful inside jokes and all this stuff. I mean, so Big E has all the potential in the world, but they are creatively, I don't know if it's Big E himself who just doesn't feel comfortable and he just wants to go back to his comfort zone. I don't know what it is, but either way, I think Big E is going to be a surprise return at the Rumble, and he might have an interaction with Kofi and Xavier. Maybe they reunite and they dominate the Rumble for a little while until a big heel comes in and disrupts that. But I don't think Big E is going to win the Rumble. I think he's maybe in our the top. Maybe in the top 15 of, the top half of possibilities, but definitely a dark horse. But yeah, Big E, certainly. It's been how long now since we had his neck broken? Then, I think that it seems like he's on his way back. So yes. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what happened this week. And I mean, there's just so much, but we can't get to everything, but I want to talk about the women's division here. And the women's division is, it's in a weird place. On Raw, you have Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss is challenging Bianca, I think, this coming week for the championship. The Rumble. I'm sorry. She's challenging her at the Rumble. Yeah. But the steel cage match with Becky and Bayley on Raw is bizarre, and I don't understand the need for that. But let's start with Raw in the women's division. How do you feel about Alexa Bliss going back to the dark side? And how do you feel about this kind of contrived forced steel cage match with Becky and Bayley that I don't think really great talents, but this version of their feud doesn't feel organic to me. It feels very forced.
Okay, I'm on the flip side of the coin. First of all, you must have been reading my mind, because I was looking at my notes and I was like, steel cage match asterisk with Becky and Bayley, and I want to hit all this stuff. First of all, Alexa versus Bianca is your big man little man match, except it's a flip side of everything, because the little man is the heel. And it was kind of weird with that whole Captain Howdy, Uncle Howdy. The Exorcist is on my mind. Sorry, guys, great movie. Uncle Howdy's presence makes her freeze. Not freeze, but she has terror, and then Alexa can attack her. I see a lot of shenanigans with this one. I see a lot of Uncle Howdy's presence. What I do like is that Alexa can work, and she doesn't get enough credit for what her work is because she's 5 foot nothing and 100 nothing. But it's like Zelina Vega. There is a great big lion inside this little puppy's body, and they can't help the fact that their bodies are so underdeveloped and small. But the flip side is Alexa Bliss brings something to the table as far as, if not her charisma, her character work. What I see in this is going to be a better match than we're anticipating, but I do see a lot of shenanigans. I could almost see that she's going to dethrone Bianca Belair. And I've said this to people before. In the 90s, they had a poll. How could someone become the ultimate heel? And the answer was shave off the people's eyebrow. So if you're a female in today, how do you become the ultimate female heel? Cut Bianca's hair.
Yes.
Cut Bianca's hair. You do that, and you, through shenanigans or not, you're a made person. You are a made person. Are you listening, Triple H? My name is Michael Gross. If I don't want to see that incorporated as a gimmick, I could see it as an afterthought kind of thing. But I mean, Philly would go crazy. Everybody would go crazy for that. So I could see that happening. It's probably not going to happen, but it could. Now the flip side, a steel cage, Becky and Bayley. Why? Maybe because Philly, steel cage, going into rough and tumble territory, but do people really want to see a women's steel cage match? There's no reason that you're going to a cage between these two when the rivalry really isn't that great. So that tells me that cage is going to come into play more than once in that episode. That's just what makes sense to me.
Yeah, I only think that this is a steel cage match because it's Raw 30 and they're trying to get to this match and make it feel more important than it is. There's nothing on the line. It's all pride, and that's fine. Every match in the women's side of things doesn't have to involve a championship. In fact, that was one of my criticisms for a long time, was everything about every feud going on in the women's divisions on both brands have to do with the championship, and I'm not a fan of that. Like, programs that have blood feuds often, a lot of times, are better than programs with championships. But this one with Bayley and Becky, I just, great talents, Hall of Famers, even if they retired right now. And they've had some good matches in the past. I don't understand this one. This one is just kind of like, just completely out of whole cloth. It's just like forced. It doesn't feel natural. Hopefully after this week, after Monday, it goes away, and then at Rumble they can go their separate ways for their separate programs. I think likely we're going to see Becky and hopefully Ronda Rousey one-on-one that we never got to see, which is really insane.
Yeah.
Since Ronda Rousey has been in and out of WWE since, WrestleMania 35? We're talking about WrestleMania 39, and this match has not happened one-on-one. It's almost impossible to believe, given Ronda's had matches with everyone else. So I think Ronda, given that also they're in both perfect roles. Becky is a babyface, Ronda is a heel. Let's do it. So I think that is set up for the taking. No belt needs to be on the line, just a grudge match. Let's do it. And now with Bayley, I don't know what her next program is going to be. It could be in the Raw Women's Championship picture after we have Alexa, but she's already done the Bianca thing, so I don't know what she exactly does. I honestly think from the women's side of things, from the Rumble, Rhea Ripley is probably going to be the one to win the whole thing, and I think she should. I think it's her year. She is she's doing career work right now, and her and Bianca Belair are going to have, I think, a great WrestleMania match. They work so well together. It's kind of a fresh match. It's happened before, but it hasn't happened in quite a while, so it'll feel fresh. And they're both powerhouse women. They both know how to work. I think it'll be a phenomenal match if and when it happens. What do you think about the women's Ultimate winner of the Rumble?
It's funny you said that because I've got another asterisk I was looking at, and it involves Rhea Ripley. I firmly believe that she is actually the leader of Judgment Day. I don't think it's Finn Balor. And I love Finn. He's probably my favorite in-ring worker these days. But Rhea Ripley is doing career work, maybe beyond career work. And she's strong as an ox. I mean, I wouldn't fight her. I wouldn't.
No.
No. And her charisma, her character Everything she has is unique. And I loved that whole segment when she's daring Solo Sikoa to hit her. And people saying, oh, it's throwback to China. No, it's different. China was just overly muscular. She had some decent moves, but she had a moveset. It's like a Rob Van Dam match. You watch Rob Van Dam, you've seen every match he's ever had, if you've seen one. Rhea Ripley's not like that. China was like that. Rhea is doing something. She's crossing boundaries, which I think is amazing. And while I'm not big on intergender, it's just the fact that she's showing I'm not afraid of anybody. This is going to be a big payoff for Rhea. This is her year, as you said. If it's anybody else, it's going to be a disappointment. If it's Ronda Rousey, it's going to be a huge disappointment because I said this from 2019 when I first got on the show. Her runs are very forgettable. Everything she does is very forgettable. And maybe people disagreed with me at first. Oh, she's a UFC champion, whatever. Shayna Baszler has sunk her teeth into this business way more than Ronda Rousey. And Shayna Baszler, if it's not going to be Rhea, I want it to be Shayna Baszler. I really do. Because that's the only other person that I think will just tear the house down. And also with her submission style, her UFC style, her and Bianca could have a very different, very solid match. And flip the script, make it Charlotte Flair, which the whole Sonya Deville thing, that one's above my head too. I don't see the drawing power in that at all. It's very weak draw. It's the abuse of power versus the best wrestler on the planet. And once again, the waters are muddy on who's the face, who's the heel. Because Charlotte cuts every promo as if every human being's underneath her because she's the queen. And Deville is playing the heel, but people still kind of want to get behind her because they know she doesn't have a prayer in hell. I mean, I'm just being honest. And you thought it, I said it. So that's where we are with that. So my two picks that I really feel are a strong lock would be Baszler and Ripley. Ripley should do it. If not, Baszler a strong second. And if Baszler doesn't do it, then I want to see if Rousey comes back. Baszler put Rousey in her place. Because that's a very believable program, and I think they can add a little something. I don't want to see Inokiism because we don't know how much that can kill a program, and we don't need Raw Underground coming back. But or what was that garbage match that they had Owen Hart and Severn in the Lions Den match? We don't need that trash. We just don't. But I want to see talented people ingrained with other talented people who can work their style and give us something a little bit different. So one other thing I want to touch on is Dakota Kai. I've always been a big fan of hers. I loved seeing her come out with Bayley. But, man, that girl's getting skinny. She's getting skinny. Like, I don't know. Is she healthy? Is she eating? I don't know. I was just a little worried about her, okay?
I haven't, it's funny you bring that up. I haven't taken a look at her physique, but people have been coming to me and commenting to me about Bayley's physique, about how she seems like she's getting thicker. And I think it's a little bit noticeable for Bayley, but I don't think it's like body fat. I think she's putting on muscle.
She is.
Bayley is a muscular chick.
She is.
And I think that's what it is. She's thicker, but I think in a way that's like it's muscle mass.
I would agree there. Bayley looks healthy. Bayley looks really healthy. She looks like she's ready for any match at any time. And she always had a great stomach. And this isn't me being like a pervert. She always had a really great stomach. So I think Bayley just trained a lot when she was injured. I think she's just taking her body more seriously. Remember when Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, whatever, he took all that time off when he came back. You're like, what did he eat? Who did he eat?
He was jacked.
Yeah. And he's maintained that ever since. So at least for the most part, I would say. And I think it's one of those where it's like you have all this time off, so you want to reinvent yourself, have something to offer when you come back, and you just kind of stick with it. You've started a new habit, a new healthy habit, so why not continue it?
No, I'm with you. I think what Bayley's done, I mean, she looks intimidating, and I think that's a compliment to her. And, I would argue that Bianca Belair is probably the best, like, pure athlete that WWE has on the women's side. I mean, she is, regardless of what you think about her personality and her persona, I think that Bianca Belair is probably the single, like, most talented athlete that WWE has. I'm not talking about all-around performer. There's arguments to be made there, but when I shifted the SmackDown side of things, the women, you had this week, you had Sonya Deville and attack Charlotte, trying to get her championship match again. We all know Sonya Deville's a stepping stone for Charlotte to get to her next real opponent. We know that Sonya Deville has no real opportunity to win the championship, and it is what it is. You have those programs, that's fine. And I think Sonya Deville is talented on the microphone, and she is, I think, above average in the ring. And I think that at some point, maybe in 2023 or 2024, they could put the belt on her. But it's not the time now, and it's just nice to see that Ronda Rousey's not on TV right now. It's almost addition by subtraction. It's really crazy that I don't miss or want to see Ronda Rousey on my TV screen, given her name value, given her all of her past accomplishments. Maybe it's a split audience on that. I just feel like, as you said earlier, that Ronda Rousey's everything she does is just kind of forgettable. Not everything, I should say. That's a little overdrawn. I think that most things she does, her title reign, especially the last run, was just, it was, to me, something I will probably never remember. It was just nothing memorable happening. She has her sidekick of Shayna Baszler, who I think is deserving of the belt. But you have Ronda Rousey, who is just like, she does not earn the title of baddest woman on the planet anymore. Can we strike that from her? That's a title that is number one, ever changing. Number two, that you would likely have to prove on a regular basis. You are no longer the baddest woman on the planet. You haven't been in, 5 or 6 years?
Yeah.
I think Holly Holm kicked that out of your face the last time I remember. And then you went and hid in your home or whatever. I don't know. I'm just not a Ronda Rousey fan. I respect what she's done. No doubt about it. She's a hell of an athlete. I just don't, when I see her on my screen, I don't want to see her on my screen. And I think she's perfectly suited for the heel role. I think Becky and her should and will have a match at WrestleMania. I'm just done with Ronda Rousey in WWE, and maybe I'm the minority here. I don't know.
No, I agree, because I've always thought, what I've hated about the crossover from UFC is that they did it right with Baszler, because she wasn't a big-time name in UFC. People knew about her. She fought. But it's like the Ken Shamrock thing. It took them years to make him beatable. They haven't found a way to do that correctly with Ronda Rousey. And I think sometimes they're afraid that she might shoot on the girls. However, there's no weight classes, and I wouldn't shoot on Rhea Ripley or Bianca Belair, or even, believe it or not, Dana Brooke's a power lifter. That girl can lift she can lift mountains. But it's not about that. And I'm not saying these girls could take her. What I'm saying is, you don't always want to test everybody you're around. And the thing is, she almost has go home heat. She has X-Pac heat with me. And that's because it's like, okay, you can't be beat, ha ha ha. Like, we knew the second you signed and came in, I knew that they're just going to push you to the moon. It was the same thing with the Roman Reigns when it got leaked that he was going to be the man. You turned on it. You just turned on it because you're like, great, why do I watch? You've already told me the outcome. And she doesn't develop her character at all. She hasn't built anything. I'm not saying I want her to all of a sudden become a hippie or anything else, but there's no depth. There's only one layer to that onion. And you know me. You know my cooking. If there's not a lot of layers to an onion, there's no aromatics, there's no flavor, and you can't flavor something with just one petal. She's just one petal. She's just one dimension. So that's kind of like what my problem has always been with her. She's the same person in and out. Now you look on the flip side, Seth Rollins evolves into a different character every 4 months. I like people evolving, but he does it too much. I wish you'd go back to the Monday Night Messiah character, where he was cutting more silent promos and more in the Jim Jones role, as opposed to what in the hell he's doing now. But he's great in the ring. So I just want to see Seth Rollins also be more of Seth Rollins and less of Zack Ryder. So with that being said, Ronda Rousey, if she can just develop another dimension, a couple more layers to that onion, give us something to sink our teeth into, then, I won't want to make it a bathroom segment or a muted television segment. I want it to be something I care about. Don't push her to the moon. Make her believably beat. That whole pin with Becky was terrible years ago. Just, it's okay if someone shifts their weight and you have your shoulders down. It's okay. Brock Lesnar got pinned. You can be pinned too.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up too with Ronda Rousey and the pin on Becky. When I watched that match a couple of weeks ago, just the ending of it too, I'm like, wow, that was a sloppy finish.
Very,
like
very.
The ending of that match with the triple threat with Charlotte, Ronda, and Becky. That ending was a sloppy ending, and it shouldn't have been. And it was like a 12-hour WrestleMania, so the fans were just like, yeah, all right, yay, Becky wins as we thought, good. But it was a bit of a sloppy ending, and regardless of that, though, I think that we've seen what Ronda Rousey is as a pro wrestler. We've seen it. Could she continue and dedicate completely to this? She could. She could, and I think she, might improve here and there, but we've seen what her ability is on the microphone. She's awkward at best. She's had decent promos, but never anything that blew me away. She somehow has an issue with the words SmackDown Women's Championship. She cannot say those three words together. She's allergic. She's allergic to those words because for her, it just should be the Women's Championship the SmackDown Championship. And like, there are so many logistical problems with that, but whatever. She has a problem with gendering the belt because the men don't have to do it. I don't even want to get into why and all that kind of stuff. But regardless, she feels, and that's disrespectful to the championship in my eyes as well. Like that you feel you're just so high and mighty that just because you can't say the name, you feel like you should just rejigger the name because it's easier for you to say, and it's about women, all this nonsense. But anyway, I don't want Ronda Rousey on my screen after WrestleMania. I'm really hoping that she just fades into the darkness, collects her money, and just kind of walks away. The women's division doesn't need her anymore. It doesn't feel like that gaping like absence like it did when she left after WrestleMania 35. It felt like, when she left after that time, I was like, oh man, like the women's division feels like it's missing something, a big star, and it did. But this time, no, I think the women's division is self-sufficient. They don't need her. They will survive just fine without her. And Charlotte is back. Okay, we've got maybe a returning Naomi. We've got Becky. We've got Bayley. I think Sasha Banks is probably done with WWE for now. But for now, look, they've got stars on the rise. They've got Raquel Rodriguez, who is, I think, a up-and-coming women's champion in 2023, probably later in the year. They've got Emma. They've got Bianca Bel-Air. They've got Alexa Bliss.
Asuka.
Asuka, that is, kind of MIA for the moment, but they've got talent. They don't need Ronda Rousey, is my point. Shayna Baszler, they've got talent. So, I don't know. The women's division as a whole, from the company perspective, I think is in a much better place than it was. But I think that right now, WrestleMania is going to be a big telling moment for probably a career-defining moment for Rhea Ripley. And on the SmackDown side of things, I honestly don't know who's going to challenge Charlotte Flair. It could be Raquel Rodriguez if she turns heel. She's shown signs of it, but who do you think on the SmackDown side of things is going to challenge Charlotte Flair, maybe multiple women at WrestleMania this year?
Raquel Rodriguez. It's a simple answer. Who got a promo? Who got a promo to cut about it's going to be Raquel Rodriguez? I think they're going to do a Cinderella story on her. Now, thing is, she's not going to win. She's not going to win. It'll be a Cinderella, look what I can do. I can put on a great match with the greatest female worker. That's what's going to happen with her. She's still about 18 months away from blossoming fully, I think. But, who knows? Asuka could come out of the woodwork. Who knows where she'll be? That's what I see as a female Rumble return. Even though she's not really gone. But probably Raquel Rodriguez. I think they're trying to move forward with pushing a new person. And considering Charlotte's promos can always go one of two ways. She has that, and it just never goes away. And, we could keep our fingers crossed for the match that everybody's wanted to see for 4 years, and that'd be Tessa Blanchard.
I know. I was waiting for that.
I was going to say it. Come on.
I was waiting for it. There it is.
And as we always say, if you're not familiar with Tessa Blanchard's work, please get on YouTube, look her up. If Charlotte's number one, Tessa's number two, and vice versa. It's a 1-2 situation. Tessa is amazing. Problem is, she's supposed to be the biggest pain to work with behind the scenes. However, with the discipline that WWE has versus Impact or AAA or some other minor league, you can't get away with the things that you've done in the past, as well as you are going to be policed constantly by agents who will keep you in check. In those kind of parameters, I believe Tessa Blanchard can flourish and, I don't want to say work the WWE style, but adapt to working in a more guided background and more guided back office area to where she doesn't kind of go off the rails. If that's true, she and Charlotte will sell a house out. They can headline it. They can headline a WrestleMania. If you guys don't believe me, please look up her work.
Yeah, absolutely. She is a talent that's worth taking some time to get familiarized with. Do I ever think she'll be in that position with Charlotte? I mean, maybe. I'm not saying it's impossible, but time's ticking, and I honestly don't know how much longer Charlotte feels like she's going to be wrestling. She's taken so much time off, and she's already established a career. She's already a made woman. She's already a legend in the business. Well, I guess that's maybe a little strong, but she's probably the biggest star in the women's division, in WWE, and she could retire tomorrow and she'd be just fine, and her legacy would be entrenched. But anyway, I want to ask you about Dominick Mysterio, because he has, I think, gone and found his perfect spot as this tough guy, just weasel that talks a big game, but only it does it when he knows he has backup. And this whole gimmick of him just laying it on and trying to be a badass, saying that he's done hard time and he's ex-con Dom and he's got the handkerchief over his face, when in reality he's spent 3 hours in a county jail, being detained, but he's trying to pretend that he's this grizzled, longtime prisoner that has, learned some hard lessons. And I mean, I'm loving this with Dominic. I think it's a perfect role for him. He's infinitely more interesting than he was with being a teammate of Rey Mysterio's. We all know it's going to get to Rey Mysterio versus Dom at WrestleMania, and they have taken the long road to get there, and I'm fine with that. I'm not complaining about it. But I'm just, my question to you is, do you like this version of Dominick Mysterio that's just this weasel kind of punk kid?
It's phenomenal. It is phenomenal. He's doing the best work he could ever do. And honestly, the best thing about it is the way he plays off Rhea Ripley and the way that she is mentoring him, and she's the muscle for him. Now, people say it's a ripoff of Guerrero and China, but it's a whole different direction. I mean, obviously, he's Eddie's godson. Come on. We know that there's going to be similarities and parallels drawn, except it's a different. Okay, let me slow down because my stuttering. You've got Dominic in a faction, but he is trying to be the centerpiece in a cowardice way. Ripley is the muscle. When the leader's supposed to be Finn, and the biggest badass of the group is Priest. It's a funny conundrum, but it works. It's not comedic funny. It's just great. Now, as far as Dom goes, 3 hours in the county prison. He got checked in just in time to take off his shoes to put them back on. All right, so it's not a prison, it's a jail. What's hurting him are the idiots doing commentary talking about dropping the soap, and he'll use a toothbrush to turn into a ship. Just shut up. Just shut up. Okay, we get it's his gimmick. You don't have to try to drive it home for him because you sound like an idiot and you're making him look worse. That's the only thing that's a drawback. Aside from that, I'm loving it, and he's developing. And some of the best things for him is not to be as involved in the matches, to maybe hit a high spot here and there, but I think it's part of the educational process because he had to skip NXT, and while he was trained by his dad, he was not thoroughly trained. So this is some of the best things for him. And then to be around people who aren't just doing Lucha Libre is amazing. His promos have gotten better. His ring presence, it'll be no Jay Briscoe, miss you, baby, but his ring presence has gotten better. And he doesn't look like a kid just waiting for his dad to give him his line for him to say. He doesn't look like a kid who's just waiting. Should I chop the guy in the chest now, waiting for his cue? He's growing, he's developing, and being around somebody as incredibly talented as Balor and as incredibly talented as Rhea Ripley is helping. And then to see the big man structure of a match with Priest, this is all really great education. I love what he's doing, and that character is great. Just pull back the commentators. Do not let them mention it. I would have them be snarky about it and be like, oh yeah, he did hard time. He took off his shoes in time to put him back on. He got booked, got fingerprinted, and then his dad picked him up or something. I don't know. Whatever. That's how you push the character more, as opposed to, trying to make it a scene from Stir Crazy, which is phenomenal, by the way. But it's apples and oranges. So let's develop the character. Let's have the commentary stop burying it and continue his education, because if he continues with this group, they don't split it up, and they let him learn more, he'll be a solid in-ring performer in a year, I think.
Well, he's light years ahead where he was.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
He's not what he could be yet, but boy is he. I mean, he has done leaps and bounds from his boring. I was arguing he should just go to NXT. And in ring, he's never been bad. In ring, he's always played the part fine. He's been a decent wrestler. He's got the fundamentals down. He's a chip off the old block. He's not Rey Mysterio, but he learned from Rey Mysterio in ring. I mean, that was his style, and he adopted a lot of what his father has done. But personality, I always said, watching my house plant that I have over here was more interesting than watching Dominick Mysterio on any kind of promo. He was boring as hell, just robotic. I hated it. Now he has found a perfect landing spot in this role of being this little punk kid that needs someone to kick his ass, and I love it. And he's continuing to squeak out wins. Triple H continues to allow him to build heat, something that Vince never really did. I think Vince he shied away from making the crowd angry. I think Vince as a whole, especially in his later years, undervalued the anger emotion of the crowd, where he felt every show had to end with a smile on your face. And how many times have we seen Monday Night Raw the last couple months of the Judgment Day getting victories and a show going off the air? I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Anger is so underutilized today in pro wrestling as a promotion to make their fans angry in a way that makes them keep coming back to see those heels get their asses kicked. I think that is something that's so underutilized, and Triple H is not shying away from it. So I love that. And eventually, it's going to be Dom and Ray. And they kind of at the beginning of this program, when Ray finally was turned on by Dom several months ago, it felt a little bit like Kane and Undertaker in the late 90s, when Undertaker refused to fight Kane, to fight him as his brother. Of course, one of the greatest storylines of all time. It's not the same, but the family dynamic of, I'm not going to fight you. And Ray was saying the same thing. I'm never going to fight my son. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do everything I can to avoid him. He went to SmackDown, and at some point he's going to be forced to fight his son. And it felt a little bit like that. Not that they were just completely duplicating it. They weren't. But that dynamic of the family refusing to fight a family member, it brought me back to Undertaker Kane in 98.
So how about 1 and 2 in the Rumble?
Yeah. Ooh. 1 and 2 are always going to be. Yes. I mean, ooh, I like that.
You do 1 and 2, and then who do you do 3 and 4? Finn. And you do Priest.
Mm-hmm.
And they beat the snot out of Ray. And that would be the best heat. And then they make Dominic chuck him over the ropes. Now we've got our Mania set up. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
I am, yes. The thing is with the Rumble, what's coming up here are massive steps forward for WrestleMania on all fronts for all storylines.
Yes.
You're not going to see every match formed at the Rumble, but the big ones, the ones that we anticipate, maybe if The Rock doesn't show up, either Monday night or at the Rumble or the Monday Night Raw after, or I'm sorry, at the Friday after. I don't know if the match with The Rock happens, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But that probably, if that's going to happen, it's going to be structured in the next week. Rey Mysterio and Dominic going to be put together in the next week. Like, you're going to see things really progress forward where they have felt a little bit stale for a while. But all right, well, I guess before we close things out, I want to toss it to you for. I mean, there's so many things that we didn't discuss, but I'll toss it to you for any topics that you want to discuss.
All right, before I do shout-outs and everything else, some stuff I've noticed this week. Ridge Holland is the new Brackus. Fire that man. Sorry, I'm just speaking the way I want to. How did this guy get on the main roster? How is he employed? That guy is so sloppy in the ring. I don't think I've seen anybody since Brackus be as sloppy as him. Then we've got our match with Drew McIntyre, our tag tournament that's going on that nobody cares about. We didn't even talk about it. That's how much we don't care about it. And honestly, I wanted the Los Lotharios to win because I'm a fan of them, and they're probably the most talented team in the whole damn tournament. But a true testament to what I say about how Sheamus is just garbage is he does the 10 beats of the Bowery. Thank you for your kick punch, body slam, garbage wrestling. When he starts counting, they pan to the audience and they show an anemic, crack-mouthed guy with like teeth that are like horse and just screaming the numbers with you. Yeah, you got to know your dynamic, WWE. Good job with the camera work right there. That's what you're attracting, baby. So, another name for the Rumble that we didn't think about, Randy Orton.
Oh my God! Yes, there you go.
Edge.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, this is crazy. I tell you, it's like mid 2000s right now. Yeah.
Now, that is the other name I wanted to mention earlier, and I was waiting for the end of the show to kind of talk about. One last ride for Edge. He's the man to dethrone, stuttering, Roman Reigns. So it cements his legacy, and it's an instant main eventer. Crowd will go nuts. You cannot lose with this. He can go till SummerSlam, lose it to somebody else. One last ride for him. He goes off into the sunset a champion. This is what he came back for. Randy Orton now, at this point, remember all those years I was saying, Randy doesn't look healthy. Randy keeps holding this company on his back. When he comes back, if he comes back, mark my words, Randy Orton is going to be on a limited schedule. I could see if I took a month or so off watching wrestling, every time I turn it on, he looked smaller and smaller. He's getting tired. He was holding the company on his back. And he can't do that anymore. He's not a young man anymore. He's been banging hard for 20 years. So I'd like to see a good showing for him. We also haven't thought about Matt Riddle.
Yep.
Now, Matt Riddle could legitimately beat the hell out of anybody, sans Brock Lesnar. But I don't think they'd give him that push. If he came back, I don't want to see, the birds and the flip-flops. I'd want to see a more serious side of him. And I would actually talk about like what happened before and maybe what happened with his absence, because we all know it was drugs, So maybe if he kicked the habit, now he's a serious character. They say incorporating real life makes a storyline better. Let's evolve the character. He's no longer the bro, he's the beater. Maybe a shock appearance by Kane. Just because I've always look, and I'll ask you this real quick. Who are the two best big men wrestlers in history, actual wrestlers? Undertaker and Kane. I don't think anybody could dispute that. You could throw in on the tiers underneath. I mean, the biggest draw was Andre, but he was no great Muda in the ring. Okay, so
no. He's an attraction.
He was an attraction. Yeah. Same thing with Haystacks Calhoun. Now maybe Abyss can be somewhere close to that top tier. If you never saw Abyss's work in TNA, the guy was amazing.
Yep.
And I can't really think of that many other people that were that 7-foot size. Because Kevin Nash, please, 6 Moves of Doom, no. Scott Hall was pretty close to it, and he was really good. Before his demons caught him, Scott Hall was good, but he wasn't that big, as big as those giants. So, soft spot for Kane. I'd love to see Kane do it. Taker's obviously not going to do it. I really don't want to see that many legends in it because you're supposed to believe that whoever's going into it gets the world title shot, like I said. If I do see Zack Ryder, I will take my shoe and throw it through my television because that's warranted, I think, at this point. What about you? You have anything else to say about this week before I do shout-outs?
Oh my God! So, I mean, honestly, I mean, we didn't even talk about Imperium. We didn't talk about the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther.
Well, Walter.
My God.
Walter. I love Walter. Yes, I could put him, even though he's not quite as big as those. He's one of the best big men. He's probably a top 10 big man easily. But
awesome.
But yeah, Walter. I'm sorry, I can't call him Gunther. I went to school with this kid named Chris Gunther. He lost all his teeth, whatever. But point is, what about you? Like, what do you have to say about this week? And Imperium, I love Imperium too, by the way.
I'm a huge Imperium fan because to me they are the antithesis of what the New Day stand for, and they've made that very clear. That you guys, they've said that on air. You guys make a mockery out of professional wrestling. You know that we take this seriously, and I'm like, yeah. So like, why is Imperium a heel group? Everything they're saying, they're respecting the business that you and I and all the viewers love. That they're not trying to make a mockery at it like the New Day do. Yeah, like what? Why are we booing them again? I love everything that Imperium stands for. I love how they take it seriously. I love everything about Gunther. I love his look. I love his in-ring work. I love that he's not this chiseled dude, that he's just a thick, big dude. His face his face, I'm telling you, is one of the biggest assets to him. And his, of course, his stature and his promos are just short to the point, but believable. He looks like, and I can't put my finger on it quite. I'm trying to give a perfect analogy. He looks like an old war general that's been like reincarnated or something. Like he's this old, like if I took a picture of him and put it in black and white and I showed it to you, you'd be like, oh, who's that guy from the 1800s? Like he's just got this like just chiseled, perfect structure to his face. I love the way he speaks. His in-ring work, as I said, is just second to none. I hope that he has a year-plus long reign with that Intercontinental Championship. He has really become a face of SmackDown, along, of course, with Roman Reigns, that storyline. But I think that he has been one of the pillars and reasons for the success of SmackDown that's more watchable over Raw. And I absolutely love everything he stands for. I mean, I'll leave it there. Of course, we didn't talk about anything with Braun Strowman or Hit Row turning heel or, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus taking out the Viking Raiders. But any of that, I mean, again, I'll stop there.
No, it's all forgettable. I'm going to give you 2 Walter Gunther facts. Do you know why he always went by Walter?
No.
This is amazing. And why he always has a stoic face. Because he said what scared him or what scared people were like horror movies. Jason, Freddy, one name. He wanted to be like that. And that's why he never had an emotion, because those killers never had an emotion because they had a mask on or a burnt face or something like that. Isn't that cool?
I did not know that. That's awesome.
That's why he always went by Walter. And people are like, why is it Walter Capitals? He's like, because Walter's coming. You just want to hear Walter. People like, Walter who? You don't know who Walter is? You better get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
That was how he built his whole character. Now, the other thing is when you're talking about a general from the old days, please don't bring Heidenreich back, man. Don't do this. Don't go with that angle.
Oh, God. No.
I had to.
I'll bring – no. Maybe Mordecai. No. Heidenreich. Oh, God. If no one knows what we're talking about, for God's sakes, I mean, you can Google it. You can YouTube it, but you do it with caution. Heidenreich.
Because you remember his original angle that they, thank God, didn't go through with. And I'm Jewish, and that just – what the – it was Heyman's idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can I throw some shout-outs out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, if anybody wants to find me, it's at 144captain on Twitter. I always want to talk wrestling. I'm a very busy person, so if I don't respond to you right away, please bear with me. I will eventually. I love the fact that after I do these shows that we listen to the mailbag and people talk about it and they respond. Some people love me. Some people don't like me. To those who love me, thank you. To those who don't like me, get over it. Learn. No, I'm just kidding. If you like The Miz, get in the car, drive off the planet. No. Seriously, though, I want to say that I miss being on the show. You know how busy I am. I am still part of this podcast, folks. I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I want to shout out to my boy Memphis Mark. I've known him for over 20 years. Personal life, great guy, great friend. Follower in the UK, the Gypsy Killer, Maverick Rose. Mimi, I miss you so much. I miss you. Everybody misses you. Ashley, of course, Ritter, Zach, Anthony DeMarco, Mr. and Mrs. Casual Wrestling Fan. I mean, the whole family. You know, I love you guys. I don't get to be on here as much. Of course, the one and only DJ Kuzmo, because everybody loves you. Everybody loves you. And I've got to know him outside of wrestling. So outside of the show, I've got to actually know DJ a little bit. And he's a really good guy. And I also want to talk about a pro wrestling show that's going to be happening in Memphis, Tennessee on the 18th that's coming up. If you will allow me real quick, it's the Nation of Championship Wrestling. The promoter is my friend Tashawn Jason. It's going to be held at 847 East E.H. Crump Boulevard in Memphis, Tennessee. That's going to be on February 18th. And the theme is it's going to be Texas Legends it's going to be Texas versus Memphis for the legend of who was the better promotion and who was the better state. I highly recommend people tune into this because I believe it might be simulcast on Hulu. And there might be some interesting things that happen on that show, and I think that people should be watching this.
I don't think they should. I think they will. Okay, the guys. This isn't a request. This is a demand.
Yes.
All right. That's.
The promoter and I are very close, and while this deal's been brokered with Hulu, and I think I've sent you some of the pictures. I don't know if it's going to be live or if it's going to be replay, but I know that this show particularly is supposed to be on Hulu, and there might be some really amazing things that happen, and I just want you folks to kind of hold your breath and think about that for a second. Yeah.
I'll leave it at that too. I mean, just tune in, and so everybody, let everyone know again the time and the date of this, just as a quick refresher.
Sure, that's going to be February 18th, and let me make sure I know when the doors open, when bell time is. Give me 20 seconds, okay? Okay. It's a Saturday show, and it starts at 7:30 p.m., okay? Once again, that's at 847 East E.H. Crump Boulevard in Memphis, Tennessee, okay? February the 18th. Please tune in.
Or attend.
Yes, yes. Tune in or attend. Definitely. I'm going to try to make it down there, maybe videotape a little bit, or maybe send you some clips, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like something might happen. We'll see.
All right.
But absolutely, everybody, if you can, tune in or attend. It's I'm sure it'll be an excellent show, and you might see some fun stuff. But only one way to find out. And, buddy, it has been an absolute pleasure to bring you back on. You know, nearly 2 hours have gone by, as always, and it's just like 15 minutes with wrestling. And obviously, as we get into WrestleMania deeper and deeper, we'll have to bring you on because we will know much more about the card very soon.
Absolutely, sir. Always, I am very humbled to be on the show. Everybody, like the beginning of the show, please hug your loved ones, tell them you love them, and remember that every day is not your last day, so every day you can change and do something a little bit better.
Excellent way to end the show. Great message, true, and thank you so much, man. We will be in touch.
All right, goodbye.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.